race 2, Sunday of the 2019 season of the DTM. Philippine gets away well. Marco Bittman really knocks down Bruno Spangler, gets tucked between the team of Block and Royal Prize, who also had a torrid start as the cars rattled at turn number 1 and head towards turn number 2.
Hello from Belgium. Here we are in Zolder. In fact, the very first time since 17 years. Indeed, in 1984, this is where the DTM actually came to life. This is where it all began, all the magic happened. And then since 2002, we have not returned till now. And we're very excited to be here. So are you ready to hear the roar? After a very exciting first race weekend at the Hockenheim Ring, now we're ready for Zolder. So let the qualifying begin. Here's your commentator.
Thank you, Verena. A very good morning to you. Welcome to Zolder then. And here we go with qualifying for DTM Round 2 of 2019. Rennie Rast, we could see inside the cockpit of his car. There is one Mr. Jamie Green. Spoke to Jamie very briefly yesterday into his 16th DTM season, as the graphics indicate. Just behind the Jamie Green car, you can see Rennie Rast then being pushed out of the garage, ready for this short, sharp qualifying session to get underway, which of course will give us the grid for the race to come this afternoon. Ferdinand Habsburg then in the ARM Motorsport Aston Martin Vantage DTM car. He'll be hoping for a better weekend than that he experienced at his DTM opener, which of course was at Hockenheim, where it didn't go all his way, that's for sure, so he'll be hoping for better luck this weekend. There he is, Bruno Spangler, former DTM champion. What can he do here at Zolder, this very old school circuit? 4 kilometers, 2.941 miles, 10 turns, 4 of them left-handers, 6 of them right-handers. However, turn 7 is a right, left, right, right, actually. And there is Marco Wittmann then. Turned it around, of course, in Hockenheim did Marco Wittmann. And you can see he won the opening race at Hockenheim, perhaps against all our predictions, but you never bet against Marco Wittmann, but took that win in race 1. It was P8 in race 2 at Hockenheim. So we're here at Zolder before heading off to Misano, then Norrisring, Assen, Brands Hatch, Lausitzring, Nürburgring, and then of course the grand finale at Hockenheim. Right at the beginning of October, but an awful lot of racing to be done before then. As you can see, you shortcut the track by using pit out. You lose at turn number 1. There is Paul de Resta, who of course at one point in Hockenheim was leading. A great debut for Aston Martin, DTM champion back in 2010, of course, Paul de Resta, and very much in the hunt for the championship last year as well, right until we got to the final round at Hockenheim. And Paul de Resta at one point leading a race at Hockenheim and actually finishing race 2 in Hockenheim, a very creditable P7. So very good debut for our motorsport and Aston Martin, of course, at Hockenheim, and continuing the good work here undoubtedly in Zolder as well. Weather conditions, dismal. That's all I'm prepared to say. It's grey, it's dank, it's a bit overcast, it's dry, as we look at Jake Dennis, who at points during free practice yesterday looked very quick indeed. Took a pair of P11s at Hockenheim. What can Jake Dennis do here? A hugely talented driver. I have a lot of time for Jake Dennis and spent some time with him at the airport on our way home following Hockenheim. And there he is, Robin Freins. This is a relatively local gig for Robin Freins. 2 podiums, of course, 2 P3s at Hockenheim. And Robin Freins will be hoping to build upon that here at Zolder, and doubtless the Robin Freins fan club will be here in full effect this weekend. So the cars lined up then. We are but a few seconds away from the light going green at the end of the pit lane, and a great number of spectators making their way into the Zolder circuit already ready for this qualifying session. Alongside me then, delighted to welcome Brian Oliver into the comms booth. Here is a spotter really to pick up on all those things that I miss, of which doubtless there are many during the course of not only qualifying but the race as well. I know you're terribly excited to be back on the DTM bill.
Good morning, Dave. Yeah, I really am looking forward to being back here at Zolder as well. The track probably hasn't changed much since DTM was here last, but the cars most certainly have, and I'm really excited to see how the drivers are going to cope with this circuit that they're all so unfamiliar with.
I was speaking to Joel Eriksson yesterday, and he was saying, you know, it's a real challenge because the mix of paint and the mix of high curbs means there are certain sections of the circuit where you really do have to be very careful indeed so as not to cause damage to the Hankook tyres. You can see that Rennie Rast is keen to get underway.
When you're faster, then you can go through.
Let's go green then for this qualifying session. Bang on time. Jamie Green first to show then as he makes his way out of the pit lane. Here is Rennie Rast that we go on board with right now, and this short, sharp qualifying session gets underway here at Zolder to set the grid for the race to come in but a few hours' time here at Zolder. So cars making their way out of the pit lane now. Some being held in the garages, as you can see, before they are released. So 10 turns a wait. It's quite a relatively short track, 4 kilometers, really tight as well. Wherever you are in the paddock, you're never far away from the track. And it really does have that old school feeling about it. When you drive into the circuit in the morning, you're actually within 100 meters or so of one of the turns. Turn number 8 in particular. So here comes Marco Wittmann then, making his way down the pit lane now.
The car behind you is an S. The gap to the front should be quite good. So 2 S's now.
There are his statistics on the right-hand side then. Some 96 races, 12 victories, 27 podiums, 11 pole positions, and of course, 2-time DTM champion. One Mr. Marco Wittmann then. Hails, of course, from Fürth, just outside Nuremberg, and therefore Norrisring is his local track, and took a victory at Norrisring for the first time in his career last year. Be hoping to repeat the same, but before we get to that, he'll be thinking very hard about this place, Zolder. Splitter cam then, as we approach this chicane. You can see how high the curb is just beyond the red and white paint, and that's of course what the driver's going to have to avoid. Climb up, then downhill. Not too much of a roller coaster this circuit, relatively flat, but there is just that elevation change that we were enjoying with the Mike Rockefeller splitter cam then. See how this right-hander is banked, as there you can see Ernst Moser then from Audi Sport Team Phoenix looking on. I would think constantly looking at the cloud cover ahead and above, because we're not predicting rain. It is slightly overcast, and the threat is therefore never far away. Loic Duval then through the pit lane now. Loic Duval, who opened his campaign with a P5 in race 1 and sadly didn't finish in race number 2, comes in for a fresh set of Hankook rubber to go on and be scrubbed off.
Okay.
Now the cars, when it comes to the start of the race this afternoon, they have a new sort of a launch control light. They raced at Hockenheim with no launch control whatsoever. The driver responsibility
Audi in pit exit
for getting off the line. Well, an awful lot of drivers suffering from extension of wheel spin, so a fairly light launch control has been reintegrated into the mapping of the car, which should reduce the wheel spin up to 25 kilometers per hour, so for the first few meters when the cars are launched off the grid, but that we'll tell you more about that when it comes to the race this afternoon. So the first meaningful time that we have is a 1:27.440, which comes from Jamie Green, then Rennie Rast, as you can see. But Timo Glock has done a purple in Sector 1, personal best in Sector 2. Gore turns in, the right-hander then. Then, as you can see, keeping his BMW off those curves, but still weaving from side to side, so still in warm-up phase, despite the fact that he's done a purple sector and a green sector. Comes right past our TV compound and then dives into the Jackie X turn, which is turn number 10. The left-hander, then right-hander, and Timo Glock crosses the timing line now. And it's the 7th fastest time for Timo Glock. Don't read too much into that, because now is when he puts his foot firmly on the loud pedal and gives it everything he can. Jamie Green is quickest with a 1:27.440. Then it's Rennie Rast, Jonathan Aberdeen, who looked very good in free practice yesterday. Robin Freins, then it's Fittipaldi, Eng, Spangler, Van der Linde, Juncker Deyer, Glock, Wittmann, and Ferdinand Habsburg. On board with Rennie Rast now. Purple, Sector 1, purple, Sector 2. For Rennie Rast then, cumulative time counting down. Jamie Green done PBs in Sector 1 and Sector 2 as well. This will better his previous time if he can nail it all in Sector 3, which he did at 1:22.143. But watch this time from Rennie Rast then as he heads towards the timing line now. He breaks the beam. The first sub 1:22 time, a 1:21.573. We could see that coming, Brian Oliver.
Yeah, Rennie Rast is really working at it very, very hard already. This track we've discovered is very windy, very difficult to overtake, and qualifying is everything. Getting a good grid position is critical for the race later on.
In that grid position could be absolutely critical. Get yourself as far up the order as you possibly can. So Fittipaldi then, P4. We're on board now with Marco Wittmann, 2-time DTM champion, personal best in Sector 1, better than anyone through Sector 2. To explain, the coloured blocks you can see alongside the name at the bottom of your screen. If it's green, it's a personal best. If it's purple, it's better than anyone. And Marco Wittmann is looking pretty racy here and goes from P13 to P3. Lost a bit of time in the final sector, did he? To be fair, we have two drivers in the 121s. Rennie Rast for Audi and Sheldon van der Linde, the rookie, for BMW with a 1:21.848. On board with Paul di Resta then for our Motorsport, and Aston Martin pummeling that Vantage DTM car around this Zolder circuit. Just 4 kilometres, 2.941 miles. And here, the number 31 car of Sheldon van der Linde that we were just talking about. Green through Sector 1. At the moment, no one's on a purple sector at all. Here comes Robin Freins then. Robin Freins is currently much further down the order until now, when he posts a 1:21.911 and goes third fastest. Timo Glock on quite a good lap as well. He goes from P9 to P6. Marco Wittmann is looking the quickest of everyone that's out on track at the moment. And Marco Wittmann, P6, comes into this final chicane at turn number 10. Gives it an absolute footfall then as he climbs slightly uphill towards breaking the timing beam. And crosses it now and goes from P6 to P1 with a 1:21.307. So taking some 4/100ths out of the previous best time. So the order is Wittmann, Rast, then it's van der Linde, Freins, Spangler, Philipp Eng, Nico Müller, Timo Glock, Jamie Green, Jonathan Aberdeen, the top 10. We're with Paul di Resta then into the pit lane. So some sparks flying off the front of the Paul di Resta car, as you can see, from, I suspect, a deflating front tyre potentially, bringing that bodywork closer to the tarmac. So in comes René Rast as well. So the di Resta car has been pushed back into the garage. Here comes René Rast then for the number 33 car, currently second fastest. Marco Wittmann for BMW is the quickest currently. René Rast, who chased Gary Paffett all the way to the championship last year. What have we got? 11, just under 12 minutes remaining in this qualifying session. And the order then is BMW, then it is Audi. Just going through the list, looking for the best of the Aston Martins. Kel Surprise, P13, Jake Dennis. Mike Rockefeller absolutely flying through that corner. That was a great shot to pick up there. He, of course, has got some slower cars ahead of him, but you can see Rocky has done quick sectors through Sector 1 and Sector 2, and this is just a warm-up lap, really, before he really gives it something. And a track position here on a relatively small circuit, when it comes to qualifying, Brian, is critical as well. You need that clear space ahead of you.
Yeah, and this track in qualifying is only going to get quicker as well. We had a lot of rain yesterday. The track was washed very, very clean as we ride on board with Mike Rockefeller. The track was washed very clean of rubber, and so the track is going to get quicker and quicker, providing the rain stays off today, and we're hoping it does. So I imagine that as this session goes on, the track is going to get crowded towards the end of it.
I think you're absolutely right. What happens is, and we've seen it time and time again, is that drivers go out and they set almost a banker lap, don't they? They go out early on and put one in the book, as Mike really rides the curbs there in car number 99. Now comes downhill, as you can see. Yes, then they come in, perhaps change of tyres to scrub in another set, then go out for another hot lap towards the end of the session. So Mike Rockefeller is actually breaking that mould, really, by being out right in the middle of the session. But of course, what Mike Rockefeller has got, he's got the track almost to himself, because the only other car out on track at the moment is that of Loic Duval, who is running behind Mike Rockefeller at the moment. So Mike Rockefeller runs through the Joachim Rindt turn, that turn number 9 kink, and heads up towards turn number 10 now. Green's in Sector 1 and Sector 2, as you can see from Mike Rockefeller. And heads up towards the timing line now to break the timing beam from P18, 1:23.446. That was not the lap that he was looking for. This potentially is going to be. I hope we can keep the clock back on Mike Rockefeller now, because this is the lap to follow. So around this long sweeping turn number 2 and turn number 3 then, before braking for turn number 4. Just lifts rather than brakes and carries the speed through, heading up towards turn number 5 now, which is another chicane here. You're going around the back of the paddock area now as Ernst Moser looks on. Mike Rockefeller gone green in Sector 1. Target time, that 1:21.307, as See as he winds his way through now, through this chicane. And you get the feeling here that Mike is pushing as much as he possibly can and trying to garner as much. But as you can see, the cumulative time now, so far, he's 1.1 seconds down on the fastest time so far. So still work to do and pace to be found in the Audi of Mike Rockenfeller. Into the final chicane then. Gives it a footful and heads towards the timing line now. This will probably be an improvement from P18. Yes, an improvement of just 3 places. It's 1:22.913 from Mike Rockenfeller, who's still some 1.6 seconds down. So here we can see an enormous lockup for Paul di Resta, shortcutting the chicane through the gravel, and that was not necessarily the way through there for Paul di Resta. So picking that up in replay. And here we can see it from a different angle, just catching that curb on the in on the right-hander. That unsettled the car, and rather than try and make the turn, he was better off short-cutting that. So you bet your bottom dollar that Paul di Resta is pushing for all he's worth. We stay on board with Mike Rockenfeller. So through that chicane he goes. Around the right-hander, and sector 1 was relatively poor. Turn number 8, then through this turn number 9. And now into the Jackie X turn now for Mike Rockenfeller. And then coming into the pit lane, as you can see, the Jackie X turn to the left-hand side of the screen as Mike opts to come into the pit lane. And as you can see, he'll be very disappointed with that. He's down there in P15 at the moment. And there, Ernst Moser is venting his opinion, I don't doubt, on the team radio. So
we
the
stop at the board.
is...
Okay, we change the tires, reduce the wing, and go out again.
Ah, there we go. Change the tyres.
How much time we are missing?
Reduce the wing as well.
It's very much the calm before the storm at the moment, isn't it? What we've got 6.5 minutes left of this session, and I have a feeling the track is going to get very crowded very soon.
Clutch is broken. Clutch is broken. No clutch.
No clutch.
On the air check, then I go. Okay,
So no clutch on the Mike Rockenfeller car. So the pit lane is starting to get busier now as we see Paul di Resta working his way out onto the track. This is that critical few moments, and we're going to see a lap in where they get those tyres up to temperature, and then the time to put in some really spectacular times. And that's what's needed here, because the track is getting faster all of the time as long as the rain stays off. And as you can see, there is a number of cars now coming out onto the track. I think we're going to be very, very crowded very, very soon.
I think that you probably need maybe 2 laps to get those tyres really up to temperature, actually, because the ambient temperature is not great, is it?
It's not.
And you've got that cloud overcast. So Mike Rockenfeller going back out again now. Just slide in the back end then on this pit exit, which leads you straight into turn number 2. You lose
at the moment. The target, the pole is 21.3, and in terms of sectors, it's 6 tenths in sector 1, 5 tenths in sector 2, 4 tenths sector 3.
So a lot of tenths that Mike Rockenfeller has got to make up, to be honest. And, take some adjustment on the rear wing, as you heard. And not only that, new set of Hankook rubber onto the Mike Rockenfeller car. He has but 4 3/4 minutes left, which actually you're talking about probably no more than 2 real laps. And Mike Rockenfeller with cars ahead of him as well, and it doesn't matter whether those cars get out of the way, that it's still going to compromise your lap. There's no question about that. This is where the team strategy, in terms of when you put the cars out, as we look at Arno Zenzen then from Audi Sport Team Rosberg, the team principal there, confirming what I said in graphics. Wittmann is still the fastest, a 1:21.307. Then it's Rennie Rast, the man that we are on board with now from Audi Sport Team Rosberg.
And we have all 18 cars out on track, so finding space is critical. And it's very, very crowded coming into the Jackie X chicane. You're going to see cars backing off, trying to find a bit of space in front of them because there's 18 cars on this little track. Is very, very crowded.
Rennie Rast is making his way around the Triple Apex turn number 7 now. Heading down towards turn number 8. You can see Sheldon van der Linde weaving from side to side in the number 31 car. P6 and a P14 at Hockenheim, and he's currently 3rd fastest. So Mike Rockefeller is going to be reported to the stewards of the meeting for spinning wheels on the air jacks. We can see that, and that clearly down to a faulty clutch, which he mentioned on team radio. So van der Linde continuing to weave then, needs this lap in terms of warm-up as well before he's able to set a meaningful time to try and better his current P3 time of 1:21.806. So Wittmann then at the moment is the fastest by 4/100ths over Rennie Rast, who is P2. Then it is this man, Sheldon van der Linde, ahead of Robin Freins, Bruno Spangler, Philipp Eng, Nico Muller, Timo Glock, Jamie Green, Jonathan Aberdeen. And it's Joel Eriksson, Fittipaldi, and the best of the Aston Martins is Jake Dennis with a 1:22.511. So some pace to be found with the R Motorsport Aston Martins at the moment. But as Brian has said, every driver is out there on track at the moment. As you can see, the bars of colour down the left-hand side of your ticker are all white, which means no one is setting times that are bettering what we've seen so far. There you can see the spinning wheels on the jacks of the Mike Rockefeller car. Now, we heard on team radio Mike Rockefeller complaining of a faulty clutch. So we'll see what race control have to say about that. I mean, to be fair to Mike, he controlled it well, didn't he? It was, you know, they were certainly aware of the fact that the clutch was faulty and causing a problem. And Rocky then, you can see him bailing out of this to try and buy some track space ahead. At the moment, he's mired down there in P15 and goes for it now. Will we run the clock on Mike Rockefeller? Because this is the lap that he needs. It's got the potential possibly for one more after this one. So brakes now. Back on the loud pedal as Mike Rockefeller heads down towards turn number 3 now, the right-hander, which you just lift rather than brake. Aberdeen has gone personal best in sector 2, so too Timo Glock, and it wasn't a brilliant sector from Mike Rockefeller. He makes some adjustments to his brake bias, goes through the Kleiner chicane, which is turn number 5. Then it's the long sweeping turn number 6 that veers round to the left-hand side as you come downhill before heading into the Triple Apex turn number 7. And out of turn number 7, as you head towards turn number 8, you'll see the white line across the tarmac, which concludes this sector and will give us the fact that Mike Rockefeller's not set any records through sector 2, is some 1.5 seconds down now cumulatively. So still work to do for Mike Rockefeller, but he should be able to complete another lap. When he crosses the timing line, there will still be time for another lap for him as he heads into turn number 10 now. And we'll cross the timing beam now. So Mike has prepared himself now for this lap. It all came together in the final sector where he set a PB. Here is Bruno Spangler, who goes 3rd fastest with a 1:21.614. This is Robin Freins. Jake Dennis has done PBs through sector 1 and sector 2. We await the Aston Martin Vantage to cross the crest, and we will see it into view after the Nico Muller car. So there's Nico Muller. And we're standing by, well, we were standing by to see the Jake Dennis car. On board with Timo Glock, there is Jake Dennis. And he moves up a further place. He's still 9/10ths down, but it's an awful lot closer than he was. And he lost a bit of time in the final sector. Wittmann quickest, Rast 2nd fastest, Spengler now is 3rd fastest. But here comes Timo Glock on a hot one. So PBs from Timo Glock through sector 1 and sector 2. Former Formula 1 star and great DTM driver Timo Glock, currently 6th fastest in the order that we have currently. And the checkered flag is out, so anyone that's on a lap now can complete this lap. And Timo Glock heads towards the beam now, and I really rather thought he'd lost some time in that final sector. Here comes Jamie Green. And for Jamie Green, it's going to be a P10. Mike Rockefeller concludes his qualifying session much further down the order than he would like to be. Ferdinand Habsburg is P18. Here comes Robin Freins and also Sheldon van der Linde seeming to give everything through the final sector, but still a supreme qualifying for the rookie in BMW. Sheldon van der Linde going from P4. There, the number 21 car of Pietro Fittipaldi, who took a P10 and a P15 at Hockenheim. We're on board with Marco Wittmann, a 1:21.307. Gives Marco Wittmann P1. Not going to improve on this lap. Session is over. As you can see, he was some 5 3/4 tenths down on his previous best time, a 1:21.307, which will give Marco Wittmann the pole position. So Wittmann for BMW, Rast for Audi, Spengler for BMW, van der Linde for BMW ahead of Robin Freins, Timo Glock, Philipp Eng, Nico Müller, Joel Eriksson, Jamie Green. Then it was Pietro Fittipaldi, P11, Jonathan Aberdeen, P12. Best of the Aston Martin Vantage cars was Jake Dennis from our Motorsport, who will be going from P13 on the grid. So Spengler then just quietly went about his business, Brian, and has banked a P3 time.
Yeah, we didn't actually see much of him on screen, did we, Dave?
No.
Just, as you say, quietly, almost just stealth-like, creeping up to P3 on the grid. A good, solid drive.
Here is confirmation then of qualifying for race 3. Marco Wittmann, the quickest driver, on 1:21.307. Then it was René Rast, Bruno Spengler, Sheldon van der Linde, Robin Freins, Timo Glock, Philipp Eng. Then it was Nico Müller, Joel Eriksson ahead of Jamie Green. And then we find Pietro Fittipaldi, Jonathan Aberdeen, Jake Dennis, Loic Duval, Danny Juncadella, a very disappointed Mike Rockenfeller, Paul de Resta, and Ferdinand Habsburg. Well, as you can see, it remains fairly dank and overcast as Marco Wittmann brings his car back towards the pit lane now. Gave it everything right until the end of the quali session. He dives into the pit lane now, and pit in is just at the turn 10, Jackie Ick's turn. Super slow-mos are the top 3 then. Going from P3 with a 1:21.614, it's Bruno Spengler. Upholding Audi honours in qualifying, René Rast with a 1:21.349. 4 100ths down, he goes from P2. And yet another pole position from Mega Marco. Marco Wittmann then, the fastest time, a 1:21.307. And as you would expect, plenty of happiness for the RMG team as Marco Wittmann makes his way out of the car now. Another one of those drivers that's always quiet and unassuming, and is just deadly when it comes to propelling a race car, Brian. 2-time DTM champion, you know. You don't become 2-time DTM champion without being very, very effective on track, and that's exactly what Marco Wittmann is. He doesn't show an awful lot of emotion. Supremely professional, goes about his job and just delivers when he needs to.
He's laid out his stall for 2019, hasn't he, with that win and 8th place in Hockenheim as well. And here he is again at a track that is new to all of these drivers. And he is the one who has mastered it best, I'd say.
Well, certainly. But again, with DTM, you know, the top 7 drivers are all in the 121s. Everyone else in the 22s. It's always, I mean, we are talking about tenths and 100ths and even thousandths in places in terms of what splits the drivers' placings in terms of qualifying. DTM is always so very close, and we expect that to come in the race as well. But we do think that probably grid position may well be critical. But of course, what we also need to factor in is the fact that the car's now the most powerful DTM cars ever. Race strategy is altogether different now, still a mandatory pit stop. The tyres do not have the longevity that they did from the previous cars, although the tyres have not altered at all. The team's strategies have to. Big smile from Marco. He knows he's done the job and done it well. Just under 5 100ths quicker than that man, René Rast. And in conversation is Bruno Spengler, who has taken P3. And if you get into conversation with Bruno Spengler, it's never a short conversation. He's always got a lot to say and is always thoroughly entertaining. So, We line up for the official photo then from the qualifying 1, 2, 3. Guido Stallman makes sure they're all in the right position. So you have in the centre Marco Wittmann, fastest. To his left is René Rast, second fastest. And to his right-hand side is Bruno Spangler, third fastest driver. Here will be the grid for race 3. Stand by. Marco Wittmann will go from pole position, P1. René Rast alongside him. Bruno Spangler and Sheldon van der Linde are on the second row of the grid, P3 and P4, ahead of Robin Freins and Timo Glock going from P5 and P6. Philipp Eng and Nico Müller, P7 and P8. And then on to the fifth row of the grid, we find Joel Eriksson and Jamie Green. Pietro Fittipaldi and Jonathan Aberdeen, P11 and P12. Then it's Jake Dennis with the best of the Aston Martins, with Lloyd Duval on the seventh row of the grid. They share P13 and P14, and Danny Juncker-Deyer and Mike Rockefeller, P15 and P16, ahead of Paul de Resta and Ferdinand Habsburg, both with work to do in the race, but the man that worked in quali is Marco Wittmann. Let's hear from him now.
So here I am with a very happy man, Marco Wittmann. Congratulations, pole setter. And let's see if you can do it again, because at Hockenheimring 2 weeks ago, you were also in race 1, you won. So you brought home the baby. So you're going to do that again from qualifying, pole setting, all the way to victory?
Well, I hope so, to be honest. Yeah, it was a great day for me today already. We made quite a few changes on the car. And after they worked all well. So really happy with the guys, with my mechanics and engineers. They did a perfect job today. And the lap was also great, you know. And I mean, here in Zolder, it's anyway difficult to overtake, though the most important is actually the start, to have a good getaway. For me on Saturday, it worked really well. On Sunday, I had quite a bad start in Hockenheim. So I have to try to make it as on Saturday.
Well, best of luck, Marco. Thank you so much. And well, that was the qualifying here in Zolder, and we're really looking forward to the race in just a few hours. So make sure not to miss it. Here are now the highlights of the qualifying. Enjoy, and see you at the race later on. Bye-bye.